Night had fallen over a picturesque, yet simultaneously eerie locale in southeastern Tennessee. A winding old road, dimly lit by the faint glow of headlights, carved its path through dense, gloomy forests. Ancient trees with twisted branches loomed over the road, forming a natural tunnel through which the starlight barely penetrated. The air was thick and humid, filled with the scent of damp earth and pine needles. From time to time, inexplicable sounds emanated from the thicket, the nocturnal songs of birds, the rustle of leaves in the weak wind, and occasionally a horrifying howl like a moan. Locals avoided this stretch of road after dark, telling grim stories of ghosts and restless souls. They especially often spoke of the Lover's Lane, a section of the road where, according to legend, a terrible tragedy once occurred, staining the place with eternal gloom. The atmosphere here was so oppressive that even the most hardened skeptics involuntarily felt anxiety and an inexplicable chill that seeped into their bones. It seemed that the very nature of this place held the imprint of past horror, as if warning anyone who dared to disturb its peace. A long time ago, in a time when life moved more slowly and secrets were kept more carefully, a young man named Tom lived in this picturesque but already somewhat secluded corner. He was hard-working, good-natured, and had a heart in love. His gaze often fell upon the charming Alice, a local beauty with clear eyes and a sincere smile. Their chance meetings grew into a deep affection, and they began to secretly meet on that same Lover's Lane, which was submerged in flowers in the spring and rustled with leaves in the autumn. Their dates were filled with tender embraces, vows of eternal faithfulness, and dreams of a shared future. However, fate, as it often happens, had its own unfortunate plans. Alice was married to Harold, a wealthy and influential man, known for his jealousy and dominant character. Of course, he had no idea about Alice's secret relationship. But, as they say, walls have ears, and sooner or later, rumors of Alice and Tom's tender meetings reached the enraged husband. Harold was furious. His jealousy knew no bounds. He plotted a cruel revenge. One dark evening, he set a trap for Tom at their favorite meeting spot. Tom, unsuspecting, arrived for the date full of love and hope. What happened next is hard to imagine in the most terrifying nightmare. Harold and his henchmen seized the defenseless Tom, subjected him to horrific tortures, and, according to the most dreadful accounts, mercilessly flayed him. His screams of horror were lost in the nightly silence, and his body was left on the cold ground, a gruesome warning to all who dared to cross the line of his wrath. Since then, they say that Tom's soul has not found peace, and Lover's Lane has become a cursed place where eternal horror reigns. Many years later, a young couple, Lisa and Dan, were driving down the same road at night. They were heading to a country house, and their GPS suggested a shortcut. But as soon as they saw that the road turned into a narrow forest path, Lisa hesitated. "Are you sure we should go this way?" she asked, looking at the grim road that disappeared into the darkness. "I heard some stories in town about this place." Her voice trembled with fear. "They said it's creepy here and cars disappear. I don't want to be here." Dan just smiled, looking at her with slight reproach. "Oh, come on, Lisa. You don't believe in that nonsense, do you? This is the shortest way, and we'll save at least an hour. We're completely safe, It's better to go this way and arrive earlier than to wander in the dark." Lisa sighed, but did not object. She knew Dan never believed in the supernatural. They drove on, and the monotony of the road began to tire them. Suddenly, their car's headlights picked up an old rusty road sign with a barely visible inscription, "Lover's Lane." Dan involuntarily shivered, remembering the local legends he had been told about. Lisa only smiled, considering it another village tale. They drove for a few more minutes, and the atmosphere around them began to change. It became especially quiet. Even the usual nocturnal sounds of the forest disappeared. The trees around them seemed taller and gloomier, and their shadows, swaying in the light of the headlights, took on bizarre shapes. Suddenly, the car began to drive unevenly. The engine coughed and stalled. Dan tried to start it again, but nothing worked. They found themselves in the middle of a dark, eerie lane where, according to legend, the unfortunate Tom had once died. Dan, who had until now considered it all just stories, felt a shiver run down his spine. They decided to get out of the car to inspect it. As soon as they stepped onto the shoulder, an icy gust of air washed over them, as if someone invisible had passed by. A quiet, drawn-out moan came from the forest, making their blood run cold. Lisa grabbed Dan's hand tightly, her face pale with terror. They heard a rustle in the bushes, and some indistinct figure flitted in the darkness. Dan turned on the flashlight on his phone and pointed it in that direction, but there was nothing there. However, the feeling of an invisible presence became stronger and stronger. It seemed that someone was watching them from the darkness, breathing down their necks. Suddenly, the same terrifying moan sounded again, but this time it was much closer, more piercing. And then they saw. In the trembling light of the faint flashlight and Dan's hand, a tall, thin figure appeared among the trees. It stood motionless, as if staring at them with empty eye sockets. But the most terrifying thing was that it had no skin. Muscles and tendons were gruesomely exposed in the moonlight, and dark streams flowed from the wounds. The figure slowly raised its hand, and Lisa and Dan saw long, bony fingers pointing directly at them. A silent scream, full of eternal pain and a thirst for revenge, escaped from its gaping mouth. The couple froze in terror, unable to move. The ghost took a step toward them, then another. Lisa screamed and tried to run, but her legs seemed to be rooted to the ground. Dan pushed her away, trying to protect her, and ran in the opposite direction himself, scrambling through the thorny bushes. He heard horrifying, squishing sounds behind him, and Lisa's desperate scream, which suddenly cut off. Dan ran without stopping, his heart pounding wildly in his chest. He did not look back, afraid of seeing what was chasing him in the nightmare. Finally, he ran out to the highway and saw the headlights of an approaching car. With his last ounce of strength, he threw himself onto the road, begging for help. The driver braked sharply. Dan rushed to the car, choking with terror and telling them what had happened. The driver listened to him with disbelief and horror. When they returned to the place, Lisa's car was gone. There were no traces of a struggle on the roadside, only yellowed leaves and the quiet night that had again fallen over the cursed Lover's Lane. Did Dan really see the ghost of flayed Tom? Will he escape his curse? And what really happened to Lisa? The answers to these questions will forever remain lost in the eerie silence of this cursed place. Since that day, Dan has not been able to get rid of the horrible nightmares. Every night he again dreams of the same forest, the same moan, and the same skinless figure approaching him, and next to it, a flayed Lisa calling for his help.